welcome party. We will be having it somewhere over there, in this building over there. It's a short distance to walk over there. So the plan is that we will meet in front of the reception where we have the registration desk at 19:50, and we will walk together there to the house at 20 or so. We will be serving beer and red and white, and there will be some music and entertainment, some finger food to have. I don't know about full meal, but can have something to eat at least. The plan is to be there from 8 o'clock until 10-ish. We have a comedian coming at the end of this event, have a short show, and after that we might just go back to the hotel. So if any questions about that, just before 8 o'clock at the registration desk. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Anthony Smoker. I was an ATCO at NATS for far too long, and then they said goodbye. So I'm now an academic. I research and teach human factors and system safety at Lund University. EASA, in some way or another, reaches all of our lives. Everybody this morning, who was speaking, would have been influenced by EASA in some way. So Airbus, for example, and they have a thing called CS25, Constructor Specification 25. You build an airplane effectively, is that right, to that standard. Constructor Standards 25. We don't have that in ATM. And that poses some interesting problems when it comes to rulemaking and regulation. So Tom was interested in what I've been involved with the EASA for FATCA for about 10 years. And so we had some discussions. And then Tom didn't really quite get how it all worked. But he sort of, being the sort of wise guy he is, he says, yeah, there's something in here we've got to go and follow. So that's what we're going to do this afternoon. EASA couldn't send somebody here. We did ask, but it's too far. And actually, EASA have some significant problems with manpower. So the ATM, rulemaking and regulation section, actually sort of reduced in number. It's about 4 when there was 8 this time last year. So we got a video link. We did have somebody knock the camera over, so we're going to do it in an interesting way. The program basically looks like this. A little bit of chat now. We're going to go straight into a live session, and Jose Luis will talk first in the broader sense about EASA. Some of the stuff he's going to talk about, everybody in this room, you've all had your European licenses. I think it's about 6 or 7 times they sent those pieces of paper out. This is where it all comes from. The ATCO license is a major part of EASA. And we'll talk a bit about the European Plan for Aviation Safety, which is a very important piece of activity, which we think we might wish to influence in some way. After that, which takes about half an hour or so, you're going to do some group exercises. Now, the reason why you're in these tables is that we could just have you all sitting down in one great big amorphous mass and writing stuff on flip charts. But actually, that's not really interesting. But by putting you in these groups, it means that Jose Luis and I can compare and contrast different views. So I have no idea whether we'll find anything. But just for example, we have a remote tower group, we have a tower and approach group. So when we come to the second part of the afternoon, are there any differences? And actually, EASA are very interested in that. And EASA take the view that if FATCA has an opinion, has experience and knowledge that they wish to use. They don't really have operational experience in the way that flight standards for airframes and piloting, they don't really have that expertise. They do have some expertise, but it's not the same. So they're very keen to foster a relationship with us that can develop the way we work. So we'll have some coffee. We'll go straight into another session with EASA, and that's operationally focused. So the remote towers and RPAS will be 2 main issues that Jose Luis will talk about. Now, a caveat, Jose Luis is a great guy, engineer, human factors psychologist, but he doesn't have expertise in remote towers or RPAS. So he'll take questions, and he says, any questions, just fire them away, and we will go back to EASA, and we'll talk about them, and we'll come back and feedback everybody here with the answers. So if there are answers, you'll get them. So it's a two-way thing. You'll find these flip charts around. I mean, these flip charts here for each table, you have to have a flip chart. So what I want you to do in the breakout sessions at the table, grab a flip chart. If you put them there now, you wouldn't be able to see. And please just cover it with stuff. and I'll just type it up and we'll sort it out. But the more we get down, particularly with relation to RPAS and remote towers, the IASA are very, very keen to understand the FATCA view, so we use it. Any questions at all? It's a free-for-all. In the 2 sessions we do with Jose Luis, we've discussed it, we know it works. Please, any questions, just shout out. Raise your hand or something and I'll interject. We tested it and we found it was better without microphones. So if you're at the back of the room there, where Sid is, if you speak loudly enough, even though he is in Brussels, he can still hear you. So we'll see how it goes. Any questions at all? Right. Niels, do you want to? Hi, Niels. At least we're about to start. Want to grab the screen?
I was watching.
Okay, good. Excellent. It's all yours. He's there. He's there. And he's watching. We can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We just
Thank
need your screen.
Yes, I'm going to share the screen. I was watching you actually in a streaming. So it worked quite well. Well, I think, well, I will introduce myself. So first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. And also an apology for not being in person in your conference. I think it would have been easier. But anyway, I think we can try even at a distance. My name is Jose Luis Garcia Chico. I work for the safety analysis section in EASA for the last 4 years when I joined the agency. Before, I was working in an ANSP in Spain, in Aire, in a research center, so mainly on the research side. I have a background in engineering and human factors, and well, in the last 4 years, I've been drafting regulation and also doing some safety analysis. So the first will be an introduction to EASA. Anthony asked me to explain a little bit what EASA does and what we and how what we do influence your work. So I don't know if what I'm presenting you right now is a little bit too basic or not. We will see later. But I thought it would be worth to give an overview on how the European Union regulatory system works a little bit first, and then the role of EASA in order to understand why we do things and how we do things and how these things affect you. So I will just very briefly present the EU institution. I'm pretty sure that most of you know, but maybe just as an introduction to EASA. And then I will explain how the EU regulatory process works, in particular inside of EASA, because it is what you can influence more directly. And then I will end with explaining how our safety risk management process works in order to show you how we identify the major risk in the aviation system and how we tackle, or we try to tackle them in the agency. That will give you an overview of how we prepare the regulations, how we identify the risk, and also to give you the opportunity to see where you could, if you wish, to influence the EASA in their work and decisions. This is a little bit basic, I know, but in the European Union there are certain areas that the European Union has the exclusive competence. There are other areas that the competences are shared between the European Union and the member states, and there are other areas in which the European Union is not giving support to the member states. In particular, transport, as you see in this slide, the transport and aviation in particular is one of those areas that are shared between the EU and member states. And when I say shared, I mean from a regulatory perspective. So there are things in the aviation that are regulated by the member states, but there are other things that are regulated by the European Union. And is shared in the sense that when there is a regulation at the European level that has precedence over the member states, when the European Union is not doing anything on a certain area, it's the member state responsibility to do it. So in a nutshell, this slide shows a little bit at very high level the different responsibilities in drafting or adopting a regulation. The European Commission is the one that is basically in charge of promoting the general interest of the Union and is drafting the regulation and proposing regulation. In certain cases, also the European Commission adopts the regulations, but only in a very few cases. Normally, the European Commission proposes the regulation and is discussed and approved and adopted by the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union. Each one of these institutions have their own driving mechanisms. The European Parliament is represented directly by, is appointed directly by the EU citizens, so they try to represent and defend the interests of the citizens, while the Council of the European Union is formed by the representative of member states, and of course they try to defend the interests of the member states. And then we have the European Commission, who has a set of agencies who help the European Commission from a technical point of view to draft the regulation. And here is where EASA comes, because we are the agency that deals with aviation. So we draft regulation for the European Commission, and it's the European Commission who takes that draft of the regulation and propose to the European Parliament and Council. So that's a little bit in a couple of minutes how the different responsibilities are set up. So in particular, the EASA is, as I said, is a European Union agency. It's technically independent in the sense that we provide the Commission, we provide with our technical expertise and recommendations, and then it's up to the European Commission to follow what we propose or to amend as they consider appropriate. Legally and financially, we have certain autonomy, although our budget is shared between the Commission and also the fees and charges that we charge to the organization we certify. Very briefly, in figures and facts, so we were established in 2002. So we are recently a new agency, and since 2009 we have certain responsibilities in the ATM domain. Before it was limited to the certification of the aircraft and flight operations. We are around 800 people. We have a headquarters in Cologne. We have a small office in Brussels. The number of states that are within our remit are the 28 European member states, plus Switzerland, Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. We have 3 people in Canada, Washington, and China as permanent representation, but it's a very small representation. So, in terms of our mission is basically stated in the regulation. So there is a regulation that was approved by the European Parliament and the Council, stating our remit and also stating our mission. So we must ensure a high common level of safety in the European Union, as is stated in the regulation. We also need to look for an environmental protection. to promote a single regulatory framework and certification process. Also, we deal with web interface to create a single market in aviation and to promote a level playing field in Europe for all the organizations in the aviation world. And also we deal with some international work such as the bilateral agreements between Europe and different countries as the US, Canada, or China. Going a little bit more into the details, well, what are our areas of competencies as a European regulator? Well, we regulate airworthiness, flight operations, flight fuel licensing, also aerodromes recently, and also ATM or air traffic services. Plus, also we are responsible to certify certain organizations in third countries. If we look at how the responsibilities are split between EASA, the National Aviation Authority in each member state, and the European Commission, what we could say is that the national aviation authorities are in charge of implementing EU laws. They issue most of the certificates and approvals and licenses. So, for example, for you as air traffic controller, the license is issued by the National Aviation Authority. They, the national authorities oversee the organization, ANSPs, airlines, maintenance organization, etc. So they oversee these organizations, and they conduct also run inspections involving third country operators. On the other hand, what EASA does is as I said before, is propose rules at the European level. Also, we certify the aircraft and products that are used in the European airspace. We oversee the space. We have also the responsibility to certificate pan-European service providers. For example, EGNO is one of the examples that we certificate, and we do the oversight. In the future, in the near future, the network manager will be another pan-European service provider to have an example. Also, we approve organizations that are not in the EU. So, for example, production organization or maintenance organizations that are in third countries. Even if we take an example of ATM, we can think of organizations that provide training to ACOS in other countries. So in that situations, we approve those organizations. We also manage the European Aviation Safety Program, which basically contains all the actions that should address the major risks in the European environment. And we coordinate the ramp inspection, the SAFA program. And basically the role of the European Commission is to adopt the rules. The European Commission has the responsibility to launch infringement procedures against, for example, national aviation authorities, if it is the case, and also manages the safety list, the blacklist, as is known. Right? So more or less that gives you a little bit of an idea of the different responsibilities. So let me go a little bit, or focus a little bit on how the regulatory process is built. And then you can see in which moment different stakeholders may have influence on this process, right? So if we think about what EASA does basically or participate in this rulemaking process in two ways. Well, first, to create a program, so to create a rulemaking program, which basically is a list of priorities that need to be addressed by regulation. And then the regulation, the development of the rule, of the development of the regulation itself, will be a draft. The end of that second phase will be a draft. I will explain the difference between opinion and decision. Basically, we have two types of rank of law. One is what we call opinion, which is a draft regulation that will be handed over to the European Commission, and then will follow a different process to be adopted. And then we have these decisions, that basically the decisions are guidance material to apply that regulation. And these decisions are not, they don't follow the process through the Commission to be approved, basically. So it's something we call soft law. Okay, then what I show now is the process that follows the European Commission and the Parliament. So there are two different processes. I'm not going into the details of those processes because that is a little bit out of your, let's say, area of influence. Because you cannot participate in that process. It will be the member states or the Parliament who participate. So here what you can see is that the law in the end of the regulation is set up by three types of regulations. One regulation that goes through to the approval of the Commission, not of the Commission, of the Parliament and the European Council, which is basically the EU regulation at a higher level. For example, this is our basic regulation, the regulation that regulates EASA, or if I can give you another example, the Single Sky regulation is also a regulation that were approved by the Council and the Parliament. We have a second layer of implementing rules, or a second layer of regulation, which are the implementing rules, which are lower level regulations that implement these high level legislative acts. And also they have to be approved, but normally they are approved by the Commission. And this follows a process which is called comitology. Basically there are committees that need to approve that rule, where the member states are represented. There are not other stakeholders represented there. So you as an organization, IFACA, could not be directly involved in that process. You may have contact in the member state and influence those, but you don't have a direct access to those processes. Where you can have an access is in the other phases that EASA is involved. So in the phase 1 and phase 2 of the development of the rule. So that's what I will, well, this is a little bit of a repetition what I said, that the output of the EASA rulemaking process is two. On the one hand, we have an opinion that will go to the Commission. So basically, it's a technical input. It's a draft regulation. It's a recommendation that the Commission will take and will discuss with the Parliament and with the committees.
Jose Luis, I wonder if you can answer. Could you answer a question, please?
Sure.
On the process you've just discussed, can you give us an example with respect to the ATCO license?
Yes. For example, the ATCO licensing regulation was an opinion. Okay, you have two parties. It was an opinion that then was taken by the Commission. It was discussed in the Parliament. It was discussed. It wasn't discussed in the Parliament. It was discussed in the committee, in the Single Sky Committee, because it was an implementing rule, and it was adopted by the Commission in the end. That regulation has associated guidance material and acceptable means of compliance, which is the second part, the bottom part of the figure, the decision. And that decision was issued by EASA without going further to be approved by the Commission. So it was basically prepared by EASA with the rulemaking group, with the stakeholders, ANSPs, and I think that some ATCO union representatives. But that part of the regulation were not approved by the Commission, was basically issued by EASA. That has a different status. It's just guidance material, or it gives details to provide a presumption that when you comply with that, you comply with the regulation. That is basically the philosophy of these two types of rules. Is it clear?
That's fine. Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. So if I give you a little bit high-level overview of what type of regulations we have, well, As I said, the basic regulation, Regulation 216/2008, is the basic regulation that states the principles and the requirements that EASA should comply, and also gives the indication what things need to develop. So based on this basic regulation or high-level law, we develop implementing rules in different areas, in the worthiness area, in the flight standard, in the ATM domain, or in the aerodrome. So in the worthiness, we have the initial worthiness with all the requirements to certify an aircraft are laid down. The continuous worthiness is the same. In the flight standard regulation, what we have is stating all the requirements for the air crew, what type of licenses they get, training, etc., etc. In the air operations, all the requirements that regulate how the airline operates, the maintenance, etc. If we focus on the ATM, we basically have five major blocks. We have what we call Air Navigation Services Common Requirements, which basically regulate the service of the organization, so the ANSPs, how they should provide the service. Then we have the ATM safety oversight, which basically regulate the responsibilities of the member states to oversee these ANSPs. Then we have the ATCO licensing that I'm pretty sure that you are very familiar with. So here in the ATCO licensing, all the requirements to get a license, the type of licenses that an air traffic controller would be required to be able to work as a controller, the training, etc., etc. All these requirements are in this implementing regulation. Then there are other two regulations, the airspace usage requirement, which basically contains technical requirements for the aircraft to be equipped if they want to fly in a certain airspace. So, for example, when we get ACAS 2 or TCAS 2 mandatory to an aircraft is basically in this regulation. And then we have SERA, that also I'm pretty sure you are familiar with. With SERA, basically has been the transposition of Annex 2 of ICAO has been transposed into the regulation, into the European regulatory framework. Also, we have the aerodrome with all the, basically was a transposition of Annex 14 with all the requirements that need to be complied with in the case of the aerodromes to get the certificate, to be designed, etc., etc. So, as I said, if we think where IFACA could influence some of the development of these rules or of the content of the rules, well, the answer is yes. So, if it is yes, where? And as I said a little bit before that it's in the EASA rulemaking process where you can have an influence, and you can have an influence in these two places. In the first phase, so in the phase of preparing the planning, so preparing the list of items that need to be developed later into the regulation, and also in the development of the regulation itself, or in the development of the draft regulation. So these are in the two places where you can have an influence or have a role to play. So let me go a little bit more into detail and where and how exactly this may work. Well, in the phase 2, so if we focus in the development of the regulation, you have basically three options or three ways to have an influence. One could be in the definition of the terms of reference. So any regulation is basically or has associated the terms of reference which basically describe the scope. So that is the basis for a group to develop the final text. So all these terms of reference are consulted with a set of advisory bodies. And the advisory bodies are stakeholders, mainly. There are these two, MAP and SAP. Well, I will, in brief, MAP are member state advisory bodies, and SAP are stakeholders advisory bodies. So IFACA would be placed in a stakeholder advisory body. And those advisory bodies are consulted. Every time we issue or we want to develop a rule, we issue a terms of reference, and these terms of reference are sent to these advisory bodies to receive their feedback, to receive their comments and their approval. That's one way. So you can basically try to influence on the scope or the terms that define the scope of the regulation that will be developed later. The other way could be later, when we finish the regulation, or when we finish the drafting, when we finish drafting the regulation, we put this regulation under public consultation, what we call NPA. Maybe you are also familiar with that name. We publish this in our website, and we collect comments and input from everybody. So everybody could participate. My mom, my father, everybody. So everybody could get the draft regulation, make comments, so we are obliged to analyze those comments, answer those comments, and take on board those that are reasonable and that we think that fits with the purpose of the regulation. That's probably the least effective, but it's also possible. And also, from my point of view, the most effective also would be to participate in the drafting group. So for every regulation we draft, we set up a group which is made up of stakeholders. So if we take one regulation, the ARCO regulation, the ARCO licensing regulation, I think that there were involved ANSPs, competent authorities, air traffic controllers, organizations, I don't know, EASA of course. I don't know if there were involved certain training organizations as well. I don't know, but this type of stakeholders. So there is a call for the stakeholders to be part of the group. So that will be one of their ways also to be involved and to have certain influence. And in this case, as a member of the group, you also may end up drafting part of the text. So if we now focus on, okay, is that all? Can we have a different influence? Can we influence on the rulemaking program? And the answer is yes. So you may have also an influence on the list of items that need to be developed from now in the next few years. But in order to tell you how, I need a little bit of, I need to explain a little bit how EASA is creating this rulemaking program. And okay, the way we build this program is embedded in a process. Sorry to to be maybe a little bit boring with the process, but we need to see a little bit the process. The process is at least conceptually simple. We identify a safety problem or a safety issue. We assess the risk of that safety issue. We define the actions to mitigate that risk, and then we implement that actions and follow up, and then we measure the system to see if there is a positive effect. So, in theory, that's easy, and this is the process we try to apply. So, in the first two steps, so step 1 and 2, the output of these two processes, or sub-processes, if you wish, is to create a safety risk portfolio. Basically, it's a list of safety issues, safety concerns, or a list of items that need to be addressed at European level. You may have safety issues more locally that they are not reflected here, or they will not be reflected here because for ATM we haven't built this risk portfolio yet. It will be soon developed. Then what we do with this risk portfolio is, okay, these are the risks that we think we, not as an agency, but as an agency in collaboration with the stakeholders, these are the list of risks that we think are or have the highest priority. So we need to create a list of actions to address or to mitigate those risks. And this list of actions goes to what is called the European Plan for Aviation Safety. One of the subset of actions is the rulemaking plan. And then these set of actions need to be implemented. So basically, if we talk about regulations, is the drafting of what I explained before. So drafting the regulation is the action to implement that regulation, also to approve and implement and adopt the regulation. And in the end, we need to measure or monitor the system. The way we monitor the system, well, annually we present kind of a status of the system measuring certain indicators. Those indicators may be the best one or may not, but it can be refined, and every year we try to improve the set of indicators we use to monitor the system. So in a nutshell, this is the way we identify the risk, create a plan of actions, implement the actions, and monitor the system. So the actions, I have this slide because the actions that are reflected in the EPAS are not only regulations. Regulation is only one type of action that can address a risk. There are other two types of actions that we also consider, which is safety promotion. So it can be promoted can be taken over by certain states to create awareness campaign, training, etc. And also the other type of action would be to enforce or to strengthen certain oversights of organization, of our space, or whatever is required. It depends on the type of risk we are talking about, right? So, in order to do all these activities, EASA has set up certain groups of stakeholders and member states that help EASA to create, first the risk portfolio, then the plan, then develop the actions, and then to monitor. And this is what I'm presenting here. So the first group is the collaborative groups, what we call CAG. And these groups are basically focused on developing the safety risk portfolio. And IFACA as an organization would perfectly contribute to the identification of this safety issue. Actually, I would say that it would be very beneficial to have your view. These kind of groups are a little bit informal in the sense that they are not, still they are not recognizing the basic regulation, but they are built or they are proposed internally by EASA. But we have a chairman, we have certain procedures how to work, and the final output would be the risk portfolio. There are the advisory bodies. These advisory bodies are more formal, in the sense that they are appointed by the executive director, and while the other ones are a little bit less formal. The output or the responsibility of the advisory body is to decide what actions and what are the plans. So they will give the input to prepare the EPAS and to prepare the rulemaking program. But the basis for that plan will be the risk portfolio that has been created by the collaborative group. You also could contribute as part of the state advisory body. And I think you are a member of one of those groups.
We are.
So, in this first presentation, my takeaway message is, okay, I have given you a broad overview of the regulatory system in Europe. What are the responsibilities of EASA, how you can influence or give your input to the processes. If you are focused, this is something that you need to decide as an organization. If you want or if you wish to participate in the identification of the risk, the right place to be is in the collaborative group. If you want to basically decide the actions to address those risks, that is to be part of the advisory body. If what you want or you want to focus your effort is in the, set up the scope of the rules, would be also in the advisory body. But if you want to actively contribute to the rule, would be in the rulemaking group. And always, if you don't want to participate in any of those groups, you always have the opportunity to comment on SBA during public consultation. So that's it on my side. We have a second set of slides that gives a little bit more practical examples of the regulation that affects you. currently and in the future, and maybe we can have a discussion. So, Anthony, I don't know if you want now to have a few questions or
Well,
I stop here.
I've got two questions for you, actually, while I was thinking up questions. So let me get this clear. We're going to have a discussion about a number of things, be it a fab, remote towers, or RPAS. The issues that we come up with today will feed to you, and they could find their way into the ATM safety profile. There's no filter in between.
Yeah, certainly they can be considered, yeah. And if you have any questions related to what I presented,
I have one question, and that is that, okay, I understand that when it goes to the Commission and the Parliament, it takes that route through comitology, but is there no way that we can have influence? I mean, I could speak to my MEP and say, well, can you raise this? He might be in a committee.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, but through someone else.
Okay, not through EASA.
So you don't participate as an organization in the European Parliament. You also can go to and talk to your MP, of course, or if you have certain contacts in the committees, of course you can.
Yeah.
That's legitimate, and you can lobby that as well. But you as an organization, you don't participate directly.
Okay. My MEP is Nigel Farage, so I might give that one a miss. Are there any questions for Jose Luis at all? Anybody like to have any questions? Mark, if you speak from there, Jose Luis should be able to hear you. It's better without a microphone. We tested it.
You just mentioned that you will show us a little bit more on details what's in the pipeline. This morning we had a discussion on Cesar and what it means for the operational control. And there was also a discussion on the Remote Tower and so on. All these programs with regard to future infrastructure are going forward at a very fast pace. What is the answer of EASA to capture the current pace of the industry when it comes to, let's say, certification inverted comma? This morning, a question was raised from the floor to one of the ANSPs with regard to data integrity issues. The answer was, we trust our suppliers. My understanding is that under the EASA system, that should not happen anymore, that EASA would then come in with certain certification specifications. But the remote towers are already reality. So where does EASA in this current topic, to take remote tower, but there will be other things with Cesar, come in, and how do you catch up with these challenges we're currently facing in the operational world?
Did you hear that question, Jose Luis?
At times, but I think I got the question.
Okay.
So there were a few sentences that I couldn't hear from Mark. Well, in the system right now, the certification of the equipment. If your question was addressing the certification of the equipment, this right now is not recognized. Well, it's recognized in the basic regulation, but there is no implementing rule to certify the equipment. There are plans to do it, but as you said, it may be that the implementation of CESAR goes faster than what we are doing with the regulations, and may have implementation of certain technologies before any implementing rule to certify certain equipments are there. And for example, you have you mentioned the remote tower. There are certain equipment that will be implemented but will not be certified. And certainly that may be the case, but there are other mechanisms already in the regulation that try to mitigate the introduction of a technical system which is not safe, which are basically all the safety assessment, that you need to do before changing anything in your system. As a NSP, you as a NSP, if you want to change something in some technological system or some procedures or the role of the controller, for example, you need to have a robust safety assessment, and that safety assessment has to be approved by your authority. It's not the same as a certification, I agree, but this is the element that we have now in the regulation. And in the future, I think that the certification of equipment could arrive, but this is something that honestly I don't know. It needs to be seen.
Okay, thank you. Is that a good enough answer, Mark? Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Jose Luis. Oh, sorry, one more question.
One quick question. Thank you, Luis. Jose Luis. The same thing for the remote tower, for example. We have an issue coming up with licensing. Many NSPs don't know what to do with this, or regulators don't know what to do with this. Is this just an endorsement, a new type of license, or is this a study for the time, or will it be a study in the future? Just to see if it's a new type of license, an endorsement, or something else that will be coming up with this.
To be honest, I'm not an expert on the licensing regulation, so just bear in mind with that. But the first thing that needs to be done is if the regulation about licensing allows the implementation of the remote tower. If it is really required to have a license to provide that service. Honestly, I cannot answer that because I haven't analyzed the case. But this is something that is part of the work of the rulemaking group that is developing guidance material to implement remote tower. And later I will give you a little bit of details about the work of this group. I can say that there was done some work at the end of last year. The result was an amendment of the ICO licensing regulation and guidance material, but mainly was guidance material to interpret if that would be possible. It was addressing only one type of operations with one single airport. If you're talking about multiple airports, this is the current work that the rulemaking group is addressing, and they started to work on that this summer. If there is a very specific question you have about that, I may not be able to answer, but I can take the question, go to the responsible person and answer for you, and then distribute to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Jose Luis. We'll speak to you at 3 o'clock.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so there you are. It all sounded quite dry, but actually that's quite an effective way of getting it across, because normally it takes 2 or 3 hours to get that through. But you see how difficult it is. The question we have for IFACA is, where do we want to seek that influence? And of the 4 groups that he mentioned, we have an opportunity to be involved. So next week is it should be the first stakeholder advisory body. IFACA sits on that. The meeting's been deferred to December, so we have another one. But we have an issue about the CAGs, because the CAGs, the collaborative groups, do we want to get involved with those? And the Norwegian controller sits on the civil air transport one. Do we want to get involved with the ATM one? So what I'd like you to do is, for 5 minutes or so, in your groups, you have a number of different perspectives to take. Remote towers, FABs. Just throw around the idea, do we want to be involved in these groups to get that influence? And if so, we'll discuss the issues later, if we can do it. Is it going to be benefit if IFACA spending its time getting involved in rulemaking tasks? Now, rulemaking tasks are a lot of activity. Typically, it's a 6-month, 9-month activity. I've spent 21 days since February working in a rulemaking group. And that's just the days there. You have all the work that gets done. So that's quite a heavy commitment. But do you want to get involved in that, do you think? Or are we going to be selective? If we are going to be selective, how do we choose what issues we chase after? So take 10 minutes or so, because we will finish at 22. Mark?
Could you maybe explain where we were involved?
Yeah, I've not got the slide here, but because unfortunately the presentation's gone. So there are the collaborators. Before, where were we involved? The EASA advisory body, SSCC? Yeah, well, what was the high level group above? The EASA advisory body advises the management board about matters. So Ryanair sit there with a low airfares carrier, IATA are there, very heavily driven by ASD, which are the manufacturers. And there's about 35 people in the group. They meet twice, 4 times a year. So that's one body, but really it was quite teethless. It didn't really have much influence at all. That's now beginning to change. So we sit there. There was the rule-making body, which is a stakeholder body, and that's now changing. We were involved in that, but I don't think we really had that much involvement in it, did we? I mean, we were on the list, but we didn't really get involved. Rule-making tasks we have been involved in. So the transition to the extension of the regulation to ATM, there were 3 groups, ACO License, the NSA, and the NSP, and we were sat in all those groups. So, but those are, as they happen, that was about it. So these groups are now changing. The EASA Advisory Board becomes a thing called the SAB, the Stakeholder Advisory Body. We think we've got a nomination in that. But then there are these other groups that fall below it. So if we think of the risk portfolio, in order for that risk portfolio to contain things that we want, we can either talk to John Franklin, who is Jose's boss, and he's agreed, yeah, we'll discuss this and we might get it in there. But if you're there, you have influence. But if we get involved in that CAG, there's the issue of the Civil Air Transport CAG. Now, the Civil Air Transport CAG, I've been to a couple of meetings, they're looking at go-arounds. ATM has an influence on go-arounds. So any rulemaking, any guidelines that come out may influence the air traffic controller's task, their job. There's one on helicopters, there's one on GA. We have a role with GA. So anything that influences ATM, taking this to view, you can argue we need to be there, but there's a cost to that. Jose Luis will talk about a rulemaking task that's to come, about ACCO training next year. And we know what the rulemaking program is, because on the EAB, the EASA advisory body, we get a chance to look at it, we get a chance to comment. So it's an awful lot of activity we can get involved in. The question is, should we? And where do you want to have the influence to suit your particular perspectives of either a remote tower or a fab. So what I'd like you to do is just have a chat, and then you've got some flip charts around. What I suggest you do is some flip charts for associated tables, but just so you can put some notes up and come back and do it after coffee if you want to. We'll go straight into the 3 o'clock session. After, Sid.
Just, if I can, Sid Lawrence from the Eurocontrol Network Manager Safety Unit. To put this in some context as well, we've had that similar discussion on the activities that we're doing in safety in the Network Manager with the EASA. And this week we had the safety team of all the ANSP safety managers, and also the CANZO, obviously air traffic control, and they're also having that same kind of conversation. So just to put that in the context of what we're discussing here this afternoon, in the ATM world, it is there. Do we all 3 have to go separately, or should we cherry pick and Eurocontrol do some bits, CANZO do some bits, Icehotels? I don't know. Just a thought.
That's it. Useful intervention, thank you. So if you could write something up on the board, you've got something to say. If not, at 3 o'clock, so have a discussion, go for some coffee. Back in here by 3 o'clock, please. 3 o'clock promptly.
Make it 10 past 3.
You sure? Okay.
And do that with the
Okay, I'll do it now. Yeah. Okay. So 10 past 3, and then we'll start the next session. The next session will consist of another bit for Jose Luis. And then we'll have some Q&A, which may or may not last long. But then we'll sit down and work in groups, looking at the specific risks and hazards that we want to take forward to EASA. Thank you.
do when there is still a need.
They'll go on the website. I'll send you the presentation later.
I don't know where right with regulation example, with our program, there is remote towers, for example, which you mentioned earlier, that there are so many questions what the regulation is going to be. Because I know that there are already simulations that have been made for things controlling several towers at the same time.
Looks like I was too confident with my capabilities.
It happens, no problem. Is this?
Yes, so I go get my...
So it's back. It's on the desktop now.
Yes, and it should be there first priority. And then influence something. I don't know if it's possible, but okay, now we want to be in this meeting.
Yeah, no. Well, except from the opposite. Yeah, I know. Unless you want to, if there's anything you want to say, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy yourself. Fair enough. Who's going to bet? I'll get you to do it. Is that okay?
Those microphones are, I just need to do something. It is okay. However, the question is, how far do we need to get out of the people today what they want? Because we have now heard what we could and be allowed, and we all know the limitations. Remote hotels maybe not involved. You will hopefully be able to get into some. You will be able to help set up ATM card. We will have to reorganize the EASA part.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you then see that Kanzo and upgraded Aspect just to where will be our place? The answer will be you might be able to get in if you have a case. So this exclusive part, Volker is there from ATC, you see, but
that didn't come out yet. But that's something we need to have an internal discussion.
we need to, there's certainly something.
So in the Q&A session, that'll probably finish early. Maybe we could discuss that then. Or is that something that should be done in private?
No, well, in private with them, of course. But they will always give you a fuzzy answer. They will always give you of course you can. It's like always used to say, we will take the best things. We don't look at these things. Remote tower, they have telecom people who have never worked in a remote tower, who have no policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
ETF came afterwards. It's a very good document. We have policy, but they didn't take us. The next one is ATM specification or whatever it was called, CRC. They took again something. So, this, you know, and NPA don't bother to reply. No. Hey, whoa.
That's the operation.
So, but I guess the issue is more to have, in the end, maybe 10 people who would like to join this EASA discussion, and then we take it from there.
So then later on we could actually just go back and look at some of that issue.
Yeah, because otherwise we have this, we had these speeches.
Well, but so actually, and Gurno and John Franklin saying the same thing.
My sees the problem is that we try to attend more the meetings. We try to and sometimes that.
So how do you want to run this thing this afternoon?
So you have to choose who you want to get. And that's the most
Yeah.
So
This is the focus.
something that you want to get out of it.
No, close the eyes.
Sometimes very difficult from my experience.
Well, absolutely. I mean, because we went on the movie very well. I must say that I found that quite fascinating, the answer to those rules. I know he doesn't actually know much about it, but there is a rule, there's a part of the rule which allows you to be able to do it. Yeah, okay.
So this is again.
So do you want to raise that formally here afterwards? So we'll come back at 3 o'clock or 10 past 3. Actually, I must 10 past 3. We'll do that session, and I think we'll do the slides.
No,
So therefore, that's the question.
Are you ready?
Not after the experience comes.
I think we have a couple of questions instead of
So the point is that what we should be saying is what's what having influence and what we really want to say. What's that in there? See, I think they've laid that open to us, but we haven't assumed.
well, wait. We can send from here a letter to Patrick and say we want to be associated to this, and this. And everybody, we have had a meeting. It's wonderful. We want to be associated to this, and then we come back and say follow the process. And then you say, okay, we enter. You say, but you know, we have to limit our access to 30 people.
However,
I mean, the sub.
yeah, I think exactly. But it's the informal. I mean, first of all, you don't want people are going to say, I don't know whether they've got a feel for what's going on. They'll be led by that. But somebody could tell them, say, well, that's not enough.
Maybe they need the 4 guys who were not replaced. Maybe they need 4 guys.
I mean, they're squeezed for people.
So, if somebody's looking for a job,
So how do you want to what do you want to do this afternoon? Let's see how it goes. Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so this,
decision is to take which one is here, what is the Bible, so that we don't, we certainly not have the opportunity.
It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
It will help Tom to.
so that's where we are. But come back. So we've got that session, and there's a group session there. Actually, let's not change it around. I mean, I still want to do that. I mean, for 20 minutes, just for the different groups. But we could actually then ask them about this issue of involvement. Well, that's why I'm trying to None at all.
Well, the rulemaking tasks
I think they must want. Yeah.
So, is it something we need to ask ourselves? Can we are a poor organization? So, are you willing to help us? There's also maybe something we can ask. How can we be able to be associated to
Yeah.
the unions get debts.
Yeah. So we get nothing.
We don't get it. The union might get
Yeah, I think for the Managing board can't like you regulations, so regulations. So actually there is a we are in the police influence.
So I sit on the key level there. So you can think of the SAS.
Yeah.
But we haven't met yet.
Oh, okay.
It's just a matter of changing.
But I have seen
I see
peers and
yes, that was a show.
document that they
Oh,
published.
Chaco, yes. Yeah. Okay.
Very useless.
I find it really hard
Because it's so much difficult influence. I mean, at that point, it's much easier to try to be in the group and try to get, let's say, allies. And then try to do the more time. I know that's a lot.
Yes.
So you
We were.
want to get
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We were. The time is during the room meeting.
No, not
in the room meeting.
no, I've been there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And Alfred.
It's not about approaching it. According to what we have, from my point of view, I think it's just quite effective. The licensing, which we have seen in just 3 or 4 years, that we have been able to do something much better. That was definitely
ATM number 4. ATM number 4. It's the NAA issue. No.
That was over. You were then here.
Yeah, for a change.
These things are sort of good, but I meant specifically not a remote tower.
So, no.
No, that was my question. Sort of, do we have anybody because we need to get? Can they not have both ETF? Because our union is part of ETF, but our union guys are saying to us that we need to get in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it sounded like now on the presentation that there was an opening to get in. I understood it as an invitation. So.
Yeah, I think it is.
Let's
Well,
Let's take it as an invitation and just.
but this is
No.
but the ATM can, which are up to 4, and I think they'll be meeting. Well, Tom's getting the first meeting there. But when it comes to the towns, every week and we just give it to as it is, and put it into the program.
Well, that's at least.
Which you know, so I think it's about teasing this for now.
Yeah.
He's got that there,
Yeah.
and then that goes to the CAG, which starts the first floor meeting in February. But that has its aspects of commercial transport as well. I think we see what pilots go to. It will be. And I think they are just having a scoping exercise first, and then the eventual meeting will be March. It's taking a year to get started.
So if I ask when it comes on again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if I ask, is there an opening? Well, see, that's also the next question, of course. Can we even? Do we have anybody? What does it entail? Are there many meetings? Yeah.
exactly what we want to get.
So there is a new room coming. No tower press is first too. So ask the question.
Yes,
So
I
what-
will.
yeah.
I will. Yeah. Okay.
So-
And then he has to say that no, we have already taken ETF or whatever.
There's a special focus
That's
on.
not a group. It's just one.
Well,
One staff representative, and they.
that's the slide.
Okay. Well, I will ask that question.
Elements. so it's management making a bid for that pitch that day. Yeah.
Which is so difficult to make a pitch for it to be in it if we then say, oh, well, we actually have nobody to send.
Absolutely.
That would be bad.
Yes.
We would have to meet what it entails.
The problem is that if you can bring up and nominate any volunteer, they're not sure that we can. That's really a little bit tricky one.
So yeah, that's actually so we'll do the session, and then just like you just and then come back and say, done with this. How are we going to and just leave it to you.
We'll leave it and I think that is also it entails
Oh, sorry.
we could do this kind of thing. So we do it for us. That was also
That's true. Essentially, yes. So there's going to be another session, and it will be another presentation where they specifically remote powers and RPAS. And then we'll have a Q&A session with him. And then I want you to sit down in groups and just work those issues. So if you're going to talk about this, what are the issues?
I'm not the person who
Yeah.
can answer about the multiple towers and licenses.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one you want, but it was just really difficult. And of course, over there, it's a Friday afternoon, and it's now 5 o'clock. So he's just yeah.
So there will be, people will be able to anyway, the real thing is that
Yes, they are, and he will talk about it. So the question is, how can we turn them in? Yeah.
next issues and TSG would be ideas
I'm getting the feeling from the clouds you want to use several different tracks again. So you want to use the arts approach. You want to get these issues in the ATM risk profile. So the more you can use lots of different levers, the more I think it will be the case that you'll get into the agenda one way or the other. Yeah, let's see.
sorry to have said no. Because no, I'm not on Mr. Personnel, but we have to one with respect to airworthiness. This guy knows perfectly well
Yes.
the geographic history, the opinion, the NPS, etc. We are, and I am rather on the ethics. Not to be but both today are the most, let's say, so I am so far. No, so I am in Cesar Alisa before Conus. The Conus has finished. But I accepted because for me, I passed it is at least for 60 people, even absolutely. Okay. So they would like to feel there is some there is. Not only high level ideas, but they are like in Java, like in Archeo,
but so many
more details on the ATM programs. It's, I don't know what is special. Yes, special organization for management, etc. So I don't know. For planning, so things needed. At least the first spaces segregated. And what I did is propose to the members of Cesar to collect material. Now, the material
Yes, absolutely.
Jaros, etc.
And also the military themselves, because our Vatican principally military, and so they'll have their own operating documents. And I'd like to piece, I think it's possibly joining it all together in that way would be a very, I mean the rules of the earth will probably need to change some.
I hope not too much. Because the idea is to try to leave the other parts of the aviation, and in particular the ATM, not too modified.
It gets difficult, but there are some circumstances that he wants to limit it, but it could possibly reach that. And you can see that some cases, if it was a trade-off to having us operating in that way and enjoy space or not, there's a pressure building up.
No. Okay, my point is that I spend so much time in collecting, leading people for that. I was fed up.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
By the way, they were on the
I know. You know this stuff. No. But you know all of this last.
I read part of the NPA, the summary of NPA, and some the process in my mind is not so clear. Even what it's part of it.
Yes.
I am a bit hero. Because I was more comfortable with Jaros, your man roadmap. FTC. I was more comfortable with that than with the AS, etc. Even if the material itself, ideas are interesting, but how it fits in the plan. It's not correct.
Not a no-brainer. When do you fly?
Tomorrow morning, very early. I need to check in and to see what time is the third. I'm afraid that I have not work to go to bed.
Are you flying straight to Paris?
Yes. No, Paris and and I feel like after the reception tonight, that I can prepare myself.
But go sleep here.
Yes. And I open up just in case. 1 year. Okay.
Right, something on the white. No, if we want to text in anyway.
Great. We're going straight into it. Straight into it. Yeah. So
Maybe I'll just unmute. But so we take this slide down, or
yeah, please do.
okay. And then I'll put it on mirroring again.
Well, you can mirror it in Microsoft.
It's right here. And it should just pop in. You unmute both of these.
Okay.
And it should just pop in whenever he's ready.
Right.
And did you think it was a little bit low, the volume, last time?
A little bit, but only for the back. I think there'll be a few more questions this time, so it could be good.
Okay. It's a little bit higher now.
Yeah. But is that him talking, or is that no?
No, that's us. But he has his own mic muted,
Okay. So let's yeah. Send an email anyway. please?
If the military have, as they usually have, their own areas, we give them another treatment to military leaders. They are not air traffic controllers there. That's our job.
He's doing it, so
So you found the full screen?
That's just it.
They are planning to
Full screen.
That's fine.
Yep, great. And so, can we work out if you... Hi, Jose Luis.
Hi, can you see the screen?
We
Can you
can.
hear me? Okay.
Do you want to go to PowerPoint projection mode?
Excuse me?
Yep, we can see it. You just need to put it into the presentation mode.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, so Jose Luis is going to talk for another half hour or so, and then we're going to some questions and answers for him, and then we'll break out into the groups. This is a slightly different presentation, and it's more operationally focused. So over to you, Jose Luis.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Thank you again and welcome again. So as Anthony mentioned, now I'm trying to give a little bit of more practical examples of the different regulations. I'm pretty sure that, okay, you may have some of those regulations in mind and how this has impact on your work, but there may be others that are not in your mind, or maybe others that are coming and you may be interested. So I will focus on these examples. Mainly these three items: air traffic services, how these traffic services are regulated or will be regulated, remote towers, unmanned aircraft or ARPAs, and then, well, I think I talked a little bit before about the ATM risk picture, so these ATM risk portfolios. So, so I had a few slides to reinforce, but we can skip them if it was clear before. As a reminder, the regulations in the ATM field, well, as I said before, we have the ATCO licensing, the regulations that cover the provision of the service, the common requirements. Common requirements are basically encapsulating the organization providing the service and the competent authority to oversee. Then there is another bunch of regulations about airspace usage requirements, or requirements for the aircraft, what type of equipment they need, like so PBN or ACAS or data link will fall into this category. Some of them are in place, some others are under development. And then the CIRA, the rules of the air regulation. We have also a little bit influence on what is defined in the single sky regulation on the performance scheme, but I think this is a little bit of, I mean, it does have not much influence on you, so I'm not talking about that. So, well, the first one is the ARPA licensing, 2015-340. I'm pretty sure you are quite familiar with that. The only point to mention here is that there is in the rulemaking plan, there is a rulemaking task that will start next year. That's what I've been told. It hasn't started yet, and will modify or amend the agency and guidance material for the ASCO training. That will be a task that will start next year and will be developed throughout the mid of the year or so to have an APA after summer, I think. So just that part of information. But I'm not talking about the APCA licensing because I'm pretty sure you are quite familiar. I will focus a little bit on the other three cases. So basically the air traffic service provision, remote towers, and the unmanned aircraft. With the ATS, I'm going to talk here a little bit about the common requirements regulation. It's a regulation that will regulate all the services provided related to ATM. So ATS, AIS, CNS, airspace management, the network manager, airspace design, and each of these services are an annex of this whole regulation. So let me go to what is of interest to you, which is the part ATS. So right now, the regulation has a set of requirements in the part ATS. There are some others that are coming in the near future. So I picked 3 of them that I think are right now in the regulation that affects you. So one is about the obligation for the organization, for the ANS provider, to implement an strength management program. So this requirement is a generic form. It is what you see in the screen, but it has ANC and guidance material associated to it. Other requirement that also have some influence on you is the obligation of the ANSP to implement a fatigue management policy. And finally, a third one that I found was also interesting to capture here is the need to implement a rostering system. The regulation lays down what element this rostering system should have, although it doesn't say, it doesn't restrict the number, but basically it requires to have this rostering system with maximum consecutive working days, with duty, maximum hours per duty, etc., etc. So that's one example. That's one example of current regulation that has been published, hasn't entered into force. It will be applicable as from 2019, but has been published this summer. In this slide, I'm talking about a little bit the complement requirements that have been published. Have been published recently another MPA, which contains additional air traffic service requirements. Are based on ICAO Annex 11 basically, but also certain elements of Annex 10 and also some elements of PANS ATM. So those requirements have been taken by the rulemaking group and have been transposed into the European regulation. Okay, only a draft. Right now it's only a draft because this piece of regulation is right now under consultation. Actually includes something that probably is of your interest, which is provisions related to AFIS, so the provision of flight information at certain aerodromes. As I said, it's under consultation and the deadline is February next year. So I think this is a piece of work or a piece of regulation that you could still have a chance to comment and to influence. Just for your information, there is a workshop organized on the 30th of November that will be used exactly to present what is the content of this MPA and to explain to stakeholders the content. When I took the MPA, I didn't read the MPA and I was not involved in drafting the regulation, but I picked just one particular requirement that I thought, okay, to highlight the type of requirement that has been transposed. As I said, requirements or standards from Annex 10 and certain requirements from PANS ATM. And one of them was, I found interesting. It was that, okay, in parallel approach is an AMC, and you can read here that when parallel approaches are carried out, separate controllers should be responsible for the sequencing and spacing of arriving aircraft to each runway. It has also associated guidance material, etc., etc. But you see that even though it's a regulation that is addressed to the organization, to the service provider, also affects you as part of that organization. Now I'm changing a little bit the topic. I'm going to remote tower operation. And as I said before in the previous presentation, the agency launched a rulemaking task last year to develop some material. The first phase was closed in 2015, and the result of that rulemaking task was the well, the issue of guidance material mainly and some ANC. Just to point out that you as controllers were represented in the group, and actually you are represented in the group, not as the organization of IFATCA, but the controller as a role is there, represented by ETF and ATC, AOEC. The output of this group in the first phase was mainly, well, here you have the two decisions that were published. When the slides will be distributed to you, you can click here because those are active links, so you can go directly to our website and check the material. The first one was mainly guidance material addressed to the NSP to guide or to provide information how to perform the safety assessment for a single airport remote operation. So it addresses only this specific case and nothing else. And the requirements to perform the safety assessment are in the regulation, in the corporate requirements, but this guidance material focuses specifically on remote towers. There was also some amendment to the ALCO licensing with regards to training and qualifications, and I took one, actually this amendment is very small, it's very short. So you can click on the link and go and see exactly what was amended. But one that I saw especially interesting was this acceptable means of compliance with deals with the unit endorsement. That basically says that when an air drone control services provided from a remote location, each aerodrome should constitute its own unit endorsement. In the NPA, in the text when it was published, there were some arguments that it will not be required a specific license to provide the remote service, but it will require a specific unit endorsement on that environment. So that's basically the objective of that ANC. Regarding the future work of this group, as I said, has started a second phase. This second phase started this summer, so they have met twice, I think. The composition of the rulemaking group is exactly the same, although they have added some additional organizations, one industry and another from a medical organization. So one human factors guy has been added to the group. Well, the objective is basically the same, is try to provide guidance material to support the implementation of this type of services, ensuring that the services is provided safely. Initially, they have discussed to focus on guidance material, possibly to propose some acceptable means of compliance. So inside of this acceptable means of compliance, one of the ideas they have right now is possibly adopt certain industry standards when these standards are available. So for example, EUROCAI Working Group 100 are working on this type of standards. So for example, I know that there will be some maps to be published for optical systems. So basically, EUROCAI will publish these standards to develop this equipment, and one possible solution will be recognize this standard in an ANC. So anybody following those standards will basically comply with whatever is required in the law. They are focusing on a little bit more complex environments, so they are talking about multiple airports from a remote location. I don't know to what extent they have advanced a lot in the discussions, but I'm assuming it's just considering 2 airports. They have stated that they will focus on human factors aspects, and the main inputs to this group. So this group are not developing the scratch the material. They are taking the material from work from CESAR, from EUROCAI, as I said, and also from ICAO. That's what I know about this about the remote tower. I'm gonna now change topic.
Jose Luis,
Maybe, yeah, if you have any question on that, because I think that is something that is of your concern. Anthony.
any questions?
Anthony.
Okay, well, there's hands up everywhere. Steve.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Stipe from Croatia, and I have a question on EASA's view on unit endorsement for remote tower. Does EASA look at that endorsement as equal or same thing as a sector license for ACC controller?
Did you get the question, Jose Luis?
No,
Okay.
I couldn't hear what he said.
Okay, so essentially the question is, does EASA treat a remote tower endorsement in the same way as an ATC sector license? Are you talking about the interchangeability of it?
Yeah.
So in an area sector, a centre, you can just sort of move around. Is it the idea that having a multiple tower endorsements, you treat the same thing, same flexibility?
Okay, what I read, and I'm not 100% sure about that, but what I read is that this is not the case, because the endorsement will be associated to a particular airport. To be 100% sure, I will take the question, I will ask the right person, and I will get back to you. But what I read so far, my understanding is that the endorsement will be associated with a particular airport, because the training has to be done on a particular environment.
Okay, great, thank you. There's two over here, well, three actually. So let's get Mark, your hand up first.
One question, Luis, maybe you don't know, but we have applied for this rulemaking group and we failed to be selected. Now I see in step 2 that you are looking for main inputs from other organizations. We are out. How do you cope with the fact that the global organization who has policy on exactly this thing will not be able to contribute to the improvement of safety in Europe? So is there a way for us, as IFATCA, to share with you our views on this complicated issue?
You mean, if the question is if you can be added as a member of this rulemaking group, I guess that's in simple terms, right?
No, that's over and out. We have not been selected. We have been told that you take only the best experts, and you have not chosen the IFATCA people in the past. So the question to me is now, because we are not in there, how can IFATCA contribute with its own policies to the work of this group? Because it would be a pity, but that's my own personal view, it would be a pity to have a global organization which has something to contribute being left out.
Well, I suppose that you can always request to be included in the group, but I'm assuming that the rulemaking group has started.
Come here.
You as not as organization, not as IFATCA organization, but as the role of controllers are represented there with two organizations, as I mentioned, ETF and ATC, ETC, AUXC. So you need to build an argument to support that your role as controllers are not well represented in that group. If there is the possibility for IFATCA to be also included in the group, or if there are other ways for you to provide the input, that needs to be probably discussed with the rulemaking group. But definitely you can request and see. Definitely, if you, for example, you have such an expert on one particular issue or one particular aspect, that expert can be brought to the rulemaking group to discuss particular things. Definitely, that is allowed by the procedure. But if you want to be a member of the group, that may be a little bit more tricky, I guess.
So it's feasible then for IFACA to request Gurno, who's the head of regulation for ATM,
Yes.
to have a session with IFACA presenting its policy?
I guess so. Why not? I mean, especially if you are concerned with something that has not been dealt with the group, or has been missed by the group, or you can always contact them, and then as a group should be ready to, to talk to you. As I said, to be accepted as a member of the group, once the group has been closed, etc., you have to justify why that can be the case, and that's a little bit more difficult, I guess, because as I said, you are represented as a controller. The role of the controller is well represented there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you're delightfully optimistic, but thank you. Did you hear that, Jose Luis?
I'm afraid I couldn't.
Okay, so essentially it's a very specific question about Maastricht this year, when the amount of simulated training, that's so annual refresher training, because of staff shortages, it was deferred to next year. The question was EASA aware of that? I doubt you'd be able to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no, I can't. I don't know. I'm not involved in that, and I don't know if they have as an organization.
Is it possible for you to talk to Gurno about that, and just to see if
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everything I'm saying now that I cannot answer, I would really appreciate if you could put in an email.
Yep, sure.
Email to me. I will make sure that this reaches the right person, and we as the agency will answer and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. One more question over here.
Yeah, hello, Jarkko from the Finnish Association. We were discussing about the endorsement for different units, but what about when we have the so-called natural tower and people working there? Should they have a different remote license to be able to work in the same environment with the remote tower systems?
Did you catch that question, Jose Luis?
Yes. I got the question, but I'm not really sure that this is the case. It has been recognized as such in the amendment, meaning that with one unit endorsement you can, provide the service in different aerodromes. Actually, the ANC, it seems to say the opposite, right? That you need one per airport.
That's what you showed, yes. But is that the case for this particular...
I mean that since I'm working in a tower at the moment, and if it one day is going to be a remote tower, remotely controlled tower, in my opinion, the work is totally different. I can see through the windows and see the familiar places. But to use a system other than my eyes to look at the traffic, in my opinion, it should be a different endorsement.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely, you're right, and this is recognized in the changes. And actually, if you go to this this ED decision, you will see also that there are guidelines for the training in the case of providing the service remotely. So you will need to get a new unit endorsement, even though it is the same airport, but you are providing the service remotely, so you will need additional training.
Happy with that? Yep. Okay, should we go on to the next bit? Sorry, Helena. One more question, Jose Luis.
Okay.
Hi, Jose Luis. This is Helena from Sweden. I'm representing the Swedish Air Traffic Controllers Association. And a quick comment on what Mark said first. Since I'm representing represented from the union, as it is also in Italy and in Spain and in Hungary and in Eurocontrol. And we also have different perspectives slightly from the unions, which is a reason to be on the different working groups, even if there are also union representatives there. So on to my question about the endorsements. Do you know if the rulemaking group is looking into how many endorsements one controller would be able to maintain at the same time? Is there a limit? Are you looking into it? I'm now referring to the remote towers endorsements, one for each tower that you talked about earlier.
I haven't seen anything like that in the amendments that has been introduced. So I don't know if they have, if they are in the first phase, definitely not. I haven't seen anything like that. In the next phase, I don't know. I'm not involved in the discussions, but I don't know if they are, addressing that particular issue. But again, please include in the list, and this is something that we will get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got Jose Luis for another 12 minutes. So
Okay.
over to you.
Okay, thank you. With regards now, I will address the topic of unmanned aircraft, or ARPAC, as you prefer. Have been actually quite some work on this area, although nothing yet at the European regulatory landscape. Well, the current regulation of our basic regulation limited our scope. When I say our, I mean EASA scope with aircraft with a mass higher than 150 kilos. So as you can imagine, most of the unmanned aircraft are not included here, and that's why what you see is different regulations in different member states. So most of the member states have started to regulate the operation of ARPAs, and there is no harmonization right now. However, the idea is to bring all this under the EU umbrella, and in the new basic regulation, the proposal is to be the competence of all unmanned aircraft. So the new basic regulation has been at least proposed to consider all the ARPAs inside of the scope. That was proposed to the Commission was proposed that to the Parliament and to the Council, and is right now under discussion. On the other hand, in-house, what we have done is to publish a technical opinion, basically laying down the concept, how EASA thinks that the ARPAs should be regulated in the future. There is the introduction of 3 categories. Many of you may be aware of that. They are called open, specific, and certified. And basically, very roughly, depends on the type of risk that they pose on the operation. Open is for those small ARPAs. The specific is where the ARPAs is starting to get higher, or the type of operation is it poses higher risk. And certified are for those big ARPAs that will be flying in non-segregated airspace that we actually don't see it happening in the near future, and will follow the normal rules. So it will require certification of the aircraft, requires pilot licensing, etc., etc. I will go a little bit into details later, so don't worry about that. And there is another piece of work that we have done. Is a roadmap that has been done with the Commission and the member states in order to introduce step by step, progressively, the regulation. Okay, let me go into the details of this technical proposal. There are 3 pillars. I mentioned that. One is operation-centric. So it depends on the type of operation and the type of environment where the ARPAS is flying that will drive the regulation. So there are these 3 categories based on the risk they pose. There is no distinction between commercial and non-commercial aircraft. And here bear in mind that still we are not dealing with ARPAs carrying people. So everything is just the ARPAs without anything, without payload, or ARPAs with some kind of payload, but not people. And there will be a kind of progressive introduction. So the three categories, as I introduced before, are open, specific, and certified. With the open are the lowest risk operations, so they are for small ARPAs, are up to 25 kilos. Competent authority need to be notified, but there is no pre-approval by the competent authority for the operation. The operation must be carried out in visual line of sight. There is a maximum altitude. It depends. There are several subcategories that I will mention later. Each one has a different maximum altitude, but basically the maximum altitude we are talking about here is 150 meters. There will be certain zones where no drones can fly. So you can imagine areas around an airport or around certain facilities such as nuclear power plants and things like that. So these need to be defined. And there are certain requirements for the aircraft to have a geofencing system, which basically will prevent the aircraft to fly out of or to fly into those areas. That's something that will be required for those type of devices. There is also the requirement to not fly over crowds, and there will be certain requirements for the remote pilot. For the specific, then there is a little bit, the operation has higher risk, and then here it will be required the approval by the competent authority to have a flight. The operators will have to do a safety assessment, and this safety assessment has to be approved by the competent authority. There will be certain organization also to support the competent authority that will have certain privileges, and they will also help to assess the assessment. And in the certified, this hasn't been really addressed, but basically you can think about these ARPA as aircraft that fly as a regular manned aircraft, so they will be required the same requirements, and it's a little bit hard right now to think that they can comply with this. What EASA has done is not only propose this technical report, but also EASA has developed a prototype regulation, and what is this prototype regulation? Basically is a test of regulation. Has been published in August, so it's in our website, and it's basically to capture the input from the different stakeholders. This prototype regulation addresses only open and specific category, and not the certified one. The certified will be tackled later. Here you can have the link, so you can check what is in the prototype regulation. Okay, this prototype regulation, as I said, addresses only the open and specific. Integrates aviation legislation, but also product legislation. With product legislation, I mean certification of certain products. Clarify the roles of the member states, and will be from now on, and I think it's in the next months or weeks, there will be a rulemaking task that will take this prototype and will start to draft the draft regulation. So this rulemaking task will amend all the possible regulations that we have now under EASA. So airworthiness, crew, ATCO licensing if it is needed, ATM if it is needed, SERA, etc. Here, a little bit in a nutshell, what the open category has been conceptualized and how the risk will be contained. So there will be maximum altitude up to 150 meters. It will be required to the APAS to have a geofencing system. Only the operator can operate the flight in visual line of sight. For certain subcategories, there will be a certain pilot competence required. There will be an identification for each device. and will be overseen by basically by the police. So the competent authority will intervene only, has a very limited role here. Certain features is, as I said, no distinction between commercial and non-commercial. Security, privacy, and data protections are also indirectly addressed in the prototype, so and the regulation probably addressed in the same way, but it will depend on the council definition. There is requirements for the operator to register the flights, and the geofencing and electronic identification are requirements for the device or for the unmanned aircraft. The member state may define these special zones where the unmanned aircraft cannot fly. So basically, we are talking about non-segregated airspace. So there will not be, or there will be minimized to the minimum possible extent interaction between iPads and manned aircraft. Okay, here I'm going to put the subcategories that are recognized or considered in this prototype are basically 4. So in the lowest one, what they call harmless is up to 250 grams. So basically, for that category, will fly only until up to 500 meters and only 100 meters far from the remote pilot. And this one basically will not require anything. I mean any type of license or any type of approval. And then, when you start growing in terms of mass of the aircraft or in terms of complexity of the operation, the requirements are a little bit more stringent, right? Okay, you will get the slides and you will see. So, for example, within that subcategory A3, it will require certain training provided by service providers of this training. So some training schools specialized, but for example, for something in the middle, may not be, will be just self-training, will be just enough. Right? At least this is the current proposal that the EASA is getting feedback. For the specific, okay, the risks of the operation are increasing. Still, we are thinking on that this operation will take place in segregated airspace. There is the introduction of a certain certificate for the operator. There will be also different, like, low risk one operations that can be done without the intervention of the competent authority, but the high risk operations may require or will require the approval of the competent authority based on risk assessment. And there is this assessment method that has been proposed, and this assessment method has been developed in the context of JARUS, that, if you know, is made of all the competent authorities, EASA, plus also FAA and other international organizations. So the future is, unfortunately, there is a workshop next Monday to discuss this prototype regulation. As I understood by the person who's in charge of the whole development program, you have been invited. I don't know if you are attending or not, but there is this opportunity. In addition, there is this rulemaking task 02330 that hasn't been published, the TOR, but has been distributed and commented. And I think that IFATCA has done it, as far as I know. The expert hasn't been appointed yet, but will be really soon. So if you are interested, you should keep an eye on that. And the next step will be focused on the open and specific categories.
Jose Luis, can we just hold it there? Jens, have you got a question for?
I actually got 2 questions, if I may.
Is it okay, Jose Luis, because you need to go home?
Yes, because actually the rest of the slides are 2 or 3 slides about the
CAGs
portfolio that we tackled before. So I think it's We can have, you know,
A couple of questions.
5 minutes for a couple of questions.
Jens.
Okay, I'm representing German MA. Hello, good afternoon. I have two questions. The first one is why is there no certification of the RPAS itself, but for the operators only? And the second question is, you're talking more or less about the accommodation of the drones or the RPAS rather than the proper integration. And my question related to this is, if there is integration, ANSPs and most probably airlines have to adapt somehow, which is extra financial burden. Who is going to pay for the efforts ANSPs have to do to accommodate or integrate the RPAS?
Did you capture those two questions, Jose Luis?
I got the second one. The first one I couldn't understand.
So the first question was the EASA philosophy appears to be that you certify the operator and not the vehicle itself. Is that right, Jens?
Okay, the certification, as I said, it depends on the risk of the operation. So EASA doesn't intend to certify all the RPAS, from something that weighs 2 grams to something that weighs 200 kilos. Certainly, for those that are heavy, like in the certified category, will be certified and will follow the same rules. It's only for those small RPAS, the one that you can go to a shop and buy now and give as a gift to your to your kid. Those are devices that EASA is not going to certify, because basically the reasoning is because of the risk they pose on the rest of the manned aviation are very low, because they will not fly, they will be restricted the operation to up to 150 meters and out of certain areas. That is the principle. That you question that this is possible or not, that's a different story, and I think that the regulation should put all the elements to allow that, or to not allow that those type of flights goes in interaction with manned aircraft. With respect to the second question about who pays the extra cost, for the certified category, which is the category who will interact most of the time with manned aircraft, there shouldn't be increase in cost, because they will be required to follow the same requirements. So there will not be additional requirements for the current ANSPs or for the current manned aircraft. The integration should be, at least theoretically, not sure if there will be certain costs, but I don't think that at this time people are thinking on that type of operation in non-segregated, having both type of traffic integrated.
Would you like to come back on that one, Jens?
Allow me just one comment, if I may. The idea is that, for example, for longer missions, like medium-sized RPAS, they can fly 2 or 3 days, and they have an endurance that currently our data processing systems cannot handle. There would be extra costs for ANSPs, and I can't see the enterprise community paying for that.
Did you get that, Jose Luis?
Yes, I think I got it. For those RPAS, again, we need to see in what category they fall, because if they fall in the certified category, they have to follow exactly the same rules as the rest of aviation. So there shouldn't be extra costs, because if they cannot comply with the rest, so if they cannot comply with interacting with ATC in the same manner as the manned aircraft, they cannot fly in the same way. So they would be just in another category, so they couldn't fly. And the other categories are not supposed to, or they are not interacting in the same manner with manned aircraft. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I was able to call that session today. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Jose Luis, and you go home now and have a good weekend.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. But and again, as I said before, if you collect the list of concerns of the group or questions, please email me, and I will make sure that everybody gets an answer.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Success with the conference. Bye-bye.
Thanks. One of you may have heard Jose Luis there saying the links in the presentation. I had the presentations, so we were playing about with them yesterday, so I'll upload them to the Dropbox folder today, so you all have them. Okay, so what I want you to do now, we've got half an hour, 35 minutes or so, spend 20 minutes, or each in different groups for a reason, and this is the reason why. I want you to consider, you have an opportunity here to give concerns, hazards, risks, whatever bothers you from your different constituencies, be it remote towers, be it BlueMed. So here's a chance to get your concerns about safety that we can take to a answer. Around the room are various flip charts. We've been sitting down all afternoon, so I just you grab a flip chart and just stand around it and just fill it up with the stuff you want. The more you put on, the better it is. And there'll be no sort of filtering out of anything. I'll just type the stuff up, send it to them, and then we'll have a discussion. And then I'll know who's here. So we'll some stuff from you. So take until